Welcome everybody to the After Dark Show. I'm Don Rogers. This is a special afternoon edition because I made time for this guest because I've wanted to talk to her for a while, and this was the best time that we could both work out where we could be on our game and give you the best possible presentation that we can about the subjects. And we're going to get into some really interesting stuff like spiritual spring cleaning and clearing entities and attachments and what exactly those things are. And I found a guest, and I've known her because she is actually a member of the FKN family. She's the wife of my producer, Chris Matthews. She is a Reiki master and teacher. She is a life coach and a light and energy worker. And her name is Jennifer Helcame. Jen, thank you for coming on. And I think this is going to be a great conversation that I've been really looking forward to.
Hi, Don. Looking forward to it myself.
So I guess we'll start with just the basics. I always ask kind of the same question as Steven does right off the start is like, what were those burning bush moments or the thing that made you click into maybe things in this reality weren't as they were explained to us by the mainstream, and you started looking into things like working with energy and dealing with some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight or today?
Actually, I was pretty young. I was probably about 12 when I started searching. I was lucky enough to have some amazing teachers come into my life at a very young age. It wasn't till I was about 18, 19 years old before I actually found the spiritual path I ended up settling on and following most of my life. But yeah, it started very young for me. I always knew that I saw things very differently than other people. And I grew up in the South, and it's a very traditional, stuck where we are, oppressive kind of place. So if you weren't toeing the company line, and I'm Christian and I go to church every Sunday and nothing else matters, then you were ostracized. And back then there was no internet. You couldn't get on and research all the curiosities that popped in your head. So I spent a lot of my youth in libraries and bookstores, and obscure bookstores were the best. The ones that were hole in the wall. Nobody knew, where they were, but they've been there forever, kind of places. But yeah, I just kind of always knew something was slightly off with the things I was observing in life. They didn't make sense to me. The churches didn't make sense to me. Seeing people say they were one thing and then act very differently was very confusing, when you're young. And I think when you're a young empath, and it can be rather a bit more crazy than a normal person in adolescence, because you have no idea what you are or why you feel this way or why you don't see the world like everyone else. And so you have to kind of come into your own, I guess is the same way that all of us do. We have to come into our own and trying to figure out why things are so different for you than they are for other people.
That makes a lot of sense. And I actually think, well, okay, when I was 15, I had an experience where I went to school in an entire different timeline for 5 years. And then I woke up and it was still just the next day. And I was 15 years old. I had an entire sleep experience when I was 15. And that's basically, it was shortly after that I left home and started drinking as well. Because like my tiny little psyche at 15 years old couldn't handle what just happened. Like now I just experienced like 4.5, 5 years of my life, but I'm still a 15-year-old boy here. Right. So that was a huge concept, and it broke me And if you're not ready to learn about the universe, you will fall into some other type of coping mechanism or something. So the fact that you dug in and went to the hole in the wall bookstores and the libraries and stuff to figure out, what is going on in this strange, weird reality that we live in, and what is it really? And I absolutely applaud you for having the sense to go that route instead of the one I did, because I did not make wise choices when I realized something was wrong.
Well, Don, if I'm being honest, yeah, no, I actually did go the route you did. Uh, it didn't stop my curiosities, and it didn't stop me understanding through trial and error and trauma with other people that I didn't see things like they did, and I probably never would. Um, but yeah, most of the folks I know, especially if they're not ready to embrace whatever gifts they have, I see it a lot with mediums. I think with the drinking. But yeah, I did the same thing. Started drinking at 15 and went through lots and lots of different drugs at a young age. And luckily for me and my genetics, I don't have addictive genes other than nicotine, because that's awful. but but yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, and it's something I see a lot. Uh, just kind of either trying to shut down gifts or trying to deal with the trauma of it all.
Absolutely. And that's something I just kind of wrote down as you were talking is I've been doing this for about a year and a half now. And in the multiple interviews, when I've talked to people about their awakening and the ones that have had paranormal or ET or extraterrestrial experiences, there seems to be certain age markers where a lot of us get hit. Like there's the 5-year-old marker. Some of them get it around 8 to 10, and then 15 when you're coming into that change of who you really are is another time that we all seem to get smacked with a hard piece of trauma. And it's almost like something in the construct doesn't want us to take that moment and run with it and truly understand who we are. So they have to make it worse. So we just bury it and try to move on through the system.
Maybe, maybe. Um, it is a repeating pattern that I see a lot of, for sure. I do think on a certain level, though, especially those that are healers out there, um, we've all been through trauma. Like, I've never met a healer that didn't have some sort of major trauma in their life, and I honestly do think it's so that we have to learn how to heal ourselves so that we can then pass that to others. Because as a healer, I don't heal you. We all know this, right? Like, nobody's gonna come and actually heal. All I do is stimulate your own ability for you to heal.
And that kind of leads into my first major question is what led you to the healer aspect of this area? Like, I guess it's a community, we'll call it that, but like there's people that are drawn to the healer aspect, like people like me and Steven and Chris and the rest of us at FKN are like the ones that need to share the information and ask the questions. There's people like you and Kyla and others in the community that are drawn to the Reiki or the energy work. It
Mhm.
seems like we all have very specific pieces that we're supposed to be playing out in the awakening, but what was it that drew you to those types of modalities, I guess?
I guess for me, it was, my dad, actually. He, was diagnosed with cancer when I was, 18 and died when I was 21. And that was a very pivotal time for it is for most people. It's when you're moving out of the house and on your own for the first time, and, um, I just saw the pain that he was in, and I saw what the medical system was doing to him, and it broke my heart, and all I wanted, was to take my dad's pain away, and it was a driving force, for a long time. So I sent out for a teacher. I said, "I don't know how to take his pain away." So I sent out for a teacher and, ended up studying for a couple of years under, a shaman who is a teacher at a massage therapy school in Charlotte, North Carolina. Uh, but I told him, I said, I don't have the money to pay for massage therapy school. He said, no worries. You're supposed to be a healer, so I'll teach you. And so he brought me all the books and taught me all the stuff. And I went and took the test on my own and, uh, and became a massage therapist at 19. And as it turned out, uh, it actually was the only thing that worked to take his pain away was, massaging his feet, massaging the pressure points. And, uh, and from there, it was a drive. I, uh, I knew that I was suited for it.
That's really cool because Kyla just finished level 1 and level 2. She hasn't got her master Reiki yet, but she literally did it for the same type of reasons. I had a motorcycle accident when I was 25. I don't talk much about it, but like I'm missing an eighth of my left leg. I'm in chronic pain. My knee's been replaced. It's not a comfortable lifestyle even for me to walk, but that was the entire reason that she ended up taking Reiki. And then I had my stomach issue in November. And before we get too much into it, I have to sing the praises of Reiki. I have a lot of gastrointestinal issues after they removed my gallbladder. She can lay hands on me and I can direct them, and she can redirect my gas pressure from in my upper chest where it feels like I'm having a heart attack down to my lower intestinal area, and I'm actually able to pass it. We do it almost
Mhm.
daily, and it's just absolutely amazing. And it is something that she's taught me is I'm able now to, in a pinch, do it myself, like lay hands and focus the energy of like, okay, I need that to move. I need this to pass through me. Like I didn't get the whole training, but it's an absolutely phenomenal modality. Like I could not say enough nice things about it.
Yeah, I didn't actually get into Reiki until, about 15 years ago. Um, and it came up in the course of a conversation with the previous teacher of mine, uh, and he was like, "I'm surprised you've never heard of it." I said, "Well, I have now, so it's time to go find out." And as it turned out, they offered the classes at the university here. So I went to the school and got my training, with an amazing Reiki master teacher, that pretty much developed the entire program for this, part of Colorado. And,
That's that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Slightly off topic. Is it you or Chris that plays the instrument in the background? One of the people in the
Oh, that's
chat.
Chris. That's Chris's. That's
Yeah,
Chris's. Yeah.
that would be my producer trip. He's a very very talented man.
Well, I like his camera better, so I steal his studio.
Um, so I guess we'll get into the subject matter of what we got here to get into is we're about to change seasons, and like a lot of us are going through that winter congested in the house and stuck state. What would you suggest, I guess, first spiritually and then physically for that spiritual spring cleaning? Because we do get junked up with energies and our surroundings get junked up. And if we can just I will separate the subjects. We'll go with spiritual first and then physical next, and why it's important to clear out both, especially when you've been caged up like this for many months.
You are absolutely right, Don. Um, there there's so many ways. So let me put that out there first of all. There's no like one size fits all with this kind of thing. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can do that, and it's really about moving the energy. So in the winter, we're all cooped up. The energy gets very stagnant, and not just within ourselves, but within our homes and our surroundings. And so the goal is to move the energy. Um, Spiritually, I would probably start with the cleansing. Um, you can do that in several different ways. One of the most popular is the sage cleansing, of course. Uh, and the Native Americans will actually cleanse the body, the spirit, with that. Also, um, s- to be honest, I have a hard time separating the spiritual and the physical. They're so connected. And this is something me and Stephen talk about quite often is the spiritual community seems to be pretty oblivious to the fact that your physical well-being is the foundation for your spiritual connection. So if you're feeling crappy physically, you're not going to get a very good connection. So most of the things I recommend are both for your physical and your mental and your spiritual. But yeah, so one of the quick basics is doing a sage cleansing. You can also use things like frankincense oil. Um, Things like jasmine oil are nice. Lavender is really good for the calming down of the mental to allow space for the spiritual. I also recommend these days, and this is something only in recent years have I really dug into to understand, but I've started doing it myself and found huge benefits to it. Um, Revoking your consent for any contracts that that you made knowingly or unknowingly with anyone, period, and starting with a clean slate. Um, Also things, that most of us do instinctually, spring cleaning your house. It moves the energy. It gets the stuck energy out of the corners. It cleanses your space, and it also puts your energy back into your space, so you reclaim it from anything that might be stuck there.
I I think that is definitely key. And you hit something that I've talked to. I have a guest on a few times, Vicky Joy, and she's an absolutely fascinating Christian researcher. And that was one thing that she really struck on is how legalistic the astral and the energetic realms are. And she uses the term you have to annul everything, like because if you try to break a contract, you're going to be punished, right? There's going to be some type of repercussion. So revoking or annulling these contracts really is key to getting these negative energies out of your personal space.
It is. It's a wonderful clearing, because people make contracts all the time with things they don't even realize that's what they're doing. And so I find that a nice way to kind of to cleanse and start over. If it's a good contract, I'll probably re-sign it at some point. If not, it's no longer serving me, so go away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell everybody like what are these energetic and even demonic entities that are just beyond our perception? Got stuck on that word there. Perception that are influencing our reality without our knowing.
Just about anything can influence you without you knowing. And most people just don't realize that because what they're actually influencing is your subconscious, which is about 80% of what is our reality. And we don't even know it because it's not conscious. Um, I have found that the permissions that we give these entities are usually in forms of, I'm going to have a drink because I need to relax. I'm going to smoke this joint because I've had a stressful day. It's, yeah, I'm going to do this line because I can't cope with the reality I'm in right now. And those things are subconscious permissions to invade you in your space, in your energy. And they can come in and take over that little voice in the back of your head that tells you all kind of wild stuff. And that is like internalized childhood trauma voices. And we all have them. Some of us are lucky enough for those voices to go, hey, you're an awesome person. Good job today. And some of us have the ones that go, hey, you're never going to be enough. Yeah. And those are those entities taking over your subconscious.
we were just saying there about the contracts and the agreements and stuff. Now,
Mhm.
I've quit drinking, but I do still partake in marijuana because of my motorcycle accident. It's the only way I can do this existence and not have to take pharmaceuticals. Can you partake in these things with the correct intention and be able to protect yourself from opening yourself to the negative energies and entities that do tend to bother with us when we're in the altered states?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, one of just the pure basic things you can do on a daily basis is to protect your energy field. Just, make sure that there aren't any, weak points, where they can get in. The other thing is really these things, they don't affect you quite as drastically in that aspect if you don't have the addiction aspect of it. So, if you're having a drink to go dancing and have fun with your friends, that's an entirely different thing that I'm having a drink because I don't like the reality I'm living in, or because I need it. I need that. I'm not gonna feel good. I'm not gonna be me. I'm not gonna be able to cope unless I have these things. That's an entirely different energy. And as we know, things take on the energy you give them.
That I was literally just finishing writing what I wanted to say because that follows with how much of what people think is entities is us just us affecting the energy around us. And I'll use myself as an example. Like if I'm in the kitchen and something falls out of the shelf, I'll like quickly put it back. And if it even slightly irritates me, something else is going to fall, right? It's almost like for Pete's sake, and you put it back, and then something else falls, right? And then the next thing falls, and then the whole spice shelf falls off if you're having a really bad day, or the whole tray falls out of the fridge door next. Like, how much of this is us? We're con- unconscious creators at this point for the most part, but how much of this is us creating our own havoc? Like, that's the thing I've been trying to figure out and why I wanted to do this show is like, okay, how bothered am I by negative energies and how much is it me being a creator and projecting this crap into my own reality when I get frustrated?
A good chunk. A good chunk. I don't think it's like either or. It's yeah, because there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of different energies, a lot of different beings, a lot of different ways of existing. Uh, but yeah, we're self-actualized beings, so we literally and physically create the world around us. But in doing that, we can also uh, consciously or subconsciously give permissions to other things to come into those fields and to invade us in different ways or to feed off of negative things. And yeah, it's all a thing. Um, I was having this conversation the other day with Ryder, actually, I think, and I'm like, it is what you say it is. It's really just that simple. We all have our perspectives, and you know, uh, we all know that none of it's provable, so it's all conjecture, and we all put in our pieces of the puzzle and stuff. But in truth, the world is what you think it is. So a
I
good chunk of the things that happen to you, yes, are absolutely caused by your own energetic vibrations and reverberations into the physical world.
That's kind of what I've been sniffing as well. Like it's like, okay, this can't all be negative energies. Like, I'll
Mhm.
get on a roll even at work. Like my family was kind of laughing. I came home like black and blue. I'm like, I hit my funny bone 12 times in one day. Like, just could not stop. It was off of everything. And by the end of it, it had happened so many times that I just started laughing about it. because I just had enough. I'm like, I'm not even accepting this is my fault anymore. Like, I don't know why this is happening. I am not trying to draw any of this into myself. Please just stop. And then it happened like the 12th time, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And it stopped after I laughed at it, but it was just like this insane amount of repetitive, like, don't, why am I doing, what am I learning from this? Why do I keep smacking my elbow?
What's it trying to tell me? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And further on what you're saying, like I've been watching a lot of videos on this whole energetic entities versus like what we do to ourselves. And a lot of people say you have to be very specific with what you want to project in this reality. And then I see the flip side of the coin. And then a lot of them are like, no, you don't have to have a certain mantra and you don't have to say a certain thing. It's all about your intention. Which side of the fence would you really, or is that another one of those things that's right down the middle?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you probably need both. Your intention does set the frequency of what you're doing. However, being specific is incredibly important, simply for the fact that I'll give you an example. I did this when I was younger, and Chris just learned this lesson himself, where we are sending out for the money to do our third film. Right. So we want to put that out into the universe, help us fund this film. And he wasn't specific about that needing to be done in a way in which no one got hurt. So what happened is the easiest way for energy to flow is the path of least resistance. So we got in a car wreck. So that was like a couple of weeks ago kind of lesson. And I said, well, honey, next time you send out for money, you need to make sure that you're very specific about no one is to get hurt. Because you do something like that and all of a sudden your aunt dies and you get an inheritance, or, you total your car and get a check, or, something like this happens. But I've done it the other way where I was very, very specific about no harm is to come to anyone in this process, and only the monies that are meant for me will come to me, kind of thing. And random money would show up in a bank account, like have no idea where this came from, kind of stuff, or donations would come in, or people, it would come in a much more positive way. So I think it's both, Don. I really do. I think you have to set your intention, and then you really have to think long and hard about the specifics of how you want that to come in.
It just listening to the thing that just happened to Chris is just insane, because I don't know if, well, you saw on her social media, Kyla has had to go back to physiotherapy from a very, very similar situation. And for me to backtrack, I'll try to do this quickly. We had a truck payment, and the truck was starting to act up, and it instantly was like, oh my God, if this truck goes, we are not in a financial position to replace this truck. It was a $40,000 vehicle. It had expensive tires on it. And it's like, we can't, but the computer system in the truck was starting to act up. And we're like, just what do we do? We're going to be so screwed. She got T-boned. The truck was a write-off. Right.
Yeah.
So immediately we're like, oh my God. And we're like, we have to replace the truck. And that didn't even balance, because we were just like, what do we do about the truck? Well, the truck was all of a sudden gone. We ended up at a $9,000 deficit. Here's where the creator being thing comes in. It's like, well, let's get the same kind of truck, but I like the louvered hood. I like the running boards on this truck. I like this. We got the exact dream truck that we wanted. We sat down and we were like, yeah, I want this. I want the one with the louvers. I want the, we forgot that we liked the Hemi engine in the original truck. So the perfect truck has a V6. It was that one detail that we left out because we assumed this is the way this will work. It'll just be our truck, but with all these fancy things. No, it's not our truck. Now it's a truck with a smaller engine, but everything you asked for. So it really is those specifics that you have to get into because the universe will give you exactly what you want. And I know I've said this on my show before. It's why I had to get out of that this sucks mindset. Because if you're telling yourself all the time, this sucks, you're telling the universe, I like it to suck. Please give me more suck. This sucks. I love it because it's all I'm talking about. You're obsessed with it. My life sucks. It's terrible. Great. Here's more suck and terrible. This is your life because this is all you talk about. And it was literally like a perspective shift before the accident where we were like, well, at least the tires on the truck aren't flat because they're very expensive. And it was like, well, but there's another thing that's good after that. And there's another thing that's good after that. And the more we as a couple started to look that our life wasn't shit, we started to pull out of it and things have gotten progressively better. I'm back to work. Actually, the job I quit when I came back, I got a raise within a month, right? Like it's just insane how well things are manifesting right in front of our very eyes once we've calmed down, realized that reality is really here for us to experience and it doesn't need to suck. You just need to change the way you're going into it.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. And that brings us into another of the spring cleaning suggestions I would have for people out there. Learn how to be grateful. And I don't mean in the standard we all hear, be grateful for what you have manner. Be grateful for things you don't have yet, as if you already have them. For example, be grateful that you have enough money. Despite the fact that you know on some level that maybe at the time you're a little shy on things. But if you look around, you realize you got a roof over your head, you got food in your belly and gas in your car and things are not as bad as you think they are. It's the perspective of I don't have everything I want, so this is bad. Whereas if you come from a thank you for giving me everything I need, that, be grateful for things you don't have yet. It's the way you bring them into your life.
That is very, very valid. Like it's drawing the abundance in because you're appreciating what you have and you're welcoming more. I don't know if you saw, but it's been a very good week. Like I had an easy week. I'm getting paid very well. I had a man that was new to the country and did not speak very clear English. And he stopped me at one of my worst stops that's most used and absolutely disgusting. I'm not going to say which company it is, but he was a newer Canadian and he looks at me and he nods over to the clean toilets, pulls out $5 and then like nods towards me. I'm not going to spend that money. I'm keeping it in my wallet because somebody saw me. And that is going to draw in more of that type of energy. I'm not being stingy because I'm not afraid of being broke anymore either. Right. And that is a terrible thing that's a whole other thing of getting over that poverty programming, because for years we were afraid of being broke. Well, guess what? We were always broke. Right. I don't mean to hijack this and make it about us, but we were saving. We were so worried about saving that once we hit the goal we had, something broke on the truck and we needed to replace it with that money. Right? Because we were so worried. I'm not saying go out and drain your bank account and do whatever the hell you want. There's a reason and a ration to living in this reality, but you also can't be afraid of the money energy either. So I'm trying to draw in more abundance by shifting my perspective about money.
And that's the way you do it.
I appreciate that because I wasn't sure if I was just half-assing it and making it up as I go along, because I've never studied any of this. And that's why I actually do this show, is because I get to talk to people like you and Steven and Chris that have done the whole research end of this thing, because I just fell ass backwards into it. And I'm like, hey, this is a fascinating world. I want to learn.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I tell all of my students. There's no right or wrong way. The magic is within you, and everybody's magic is uniquely their own. So if you fell into it and it works, do it. That is your magic, and no one else can copy it. Or, I get a lot of teach me magic. And I'm like, that's not how that works. Your magic is yours. The only thing I can do is show you where the door is. You have to open that door and you have to walk through it. But I can't do that for you. And so yeah, you're doing it exactly like we should all be doing it. If it feels right, fall into it. You know, a lot of people think you got to be a warrior, you got to fight, you got to do this. No, the secret is simply relaxing into the flow.
I was actually just saying this with my guest, or was it Steven? I don't know. I talked to so many people.
Feel
I've
that.
started using my body as almost like a biological lie detector to guide me through reality. And I ask myself, I know I probably look like I have some type of disability, but a lot of the times, if I'm having something that is really an important thing, I'll ask it in my head a couple of times, and the physiological response I get on internally is what I go with. Like if I get that sick, gross, nasty feeling, that's a hard no. If it's like nothing really happens, it's like, okay, just kind of keep going this way and it's indifferent. The universe doesn't seem to mind what we're doing. But if I ask myself a question and get like those internal goosebumps and feel like wings are about to pop out of my back and butterflies, it's like, okay, I need to lean this way. It's like dee 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 dee, and that's the way you start heading.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is a very powerful uh, thing to develop within yourself, is that ability to hear your own intuition and then to pay attention to how your body, how your physical self responds to that, because that's going to give you your answers. That's going to tell you what is going on around you and within you, and whether or not this is a good path for you to go down. Always pay attention to that gut feeling.
Exactly. Like I think that's one of the things that we've in society have kind of put to the wayside is trusting our own human instincts. Like we just follow mainstream. I don't mean you and I mean people as a whole tend to just
Mhm.
follow mainstream, follow the narrative, follow along and just ignore everything that's going by them that you should be looking at and paying attention to. And it's like I I I don't think I could possibly shut it off now. And
Mhm.
there's that double that you have to play with normal reality, because I do have a 9 to 5 job and I see people doing things and I just like, stop it. But you can't do that, right?
Mm-mm.
Because it's like, oh, I know you're killing yourself, but I'm not allowed to interfere and tell you, right? Like, oh, you're drinking Red Bull. That's nice. I'm not going to tell you. Right? You just have to shut up. Now, if they come to you and ask you, you're allowed to share and help them. But from the way I've approached it, it is like you can't just Stephen references being the guy with the megaphone. There's fluoride in your water, right? Yes,
Yeah.
we absolutely all want to do that, but you can't, right? One, you're going to exhaust yourself, and two, people are going to think you're insane.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, that was a process I went through pretty early on, when I started researching the conspiracy side of things. I was actually trying to find out why me and my son were getting very sick. And yeah, it's exhausting. But but yeah, it's interesting stuff how you know, you are the one that decides this stuff. And most people have no idea that they have that kind of control over themselves, over everything around them. Um, and, the conspiracy stuff, it's interesting to me. But yeah, when I first woke up to all of that, I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And you do get that feeling. You just want to run around shaking everybody and go, "Do you not know that your food is poisoning you?" You know? And you find it very difficult to have just normal conversations. Personally, I'm a teacher by nature, and so I found it very hard not to give the information to people. But I found after a while that it felt more like I was beating my head on a brick wall. And the only person that was getting anything out of this was me, and it was a bloody head. And so, and it was people I cared about, my friends, my family. Those are the ones you really you want to save from themselves because they're doing things are going to hurt them, but they don't know that. And you think, well, if they only knew, then they'd stop, right?
Yeah,
It's not the way it works. We all have to wake up in our own time. And so yeah, eventually you get to a point where you're like, okay, if you want to know, you'll ask. And until then, I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm going to sit right here and I'm just going to pray for your soul, as we say in the South. Yeah, I'm going to wish you well and hope that you open your eyes sooner rather than later.
exactly. And I actually had a weird interaction with my new supervisor. He actually was looking over my shoulder in a meeting and I was making a graphic and he ended up wanting to know about human design. And I was like, this is neat because sometimes you do get that interaction in the 3D with somebody that's like almost there or maybe is and is right beside you and you don't know. But I've noticed a lot of the time the reason you can't scream it from the rooftops or put it in everybody's face is the response I've been getting when I tried was you either get what Kyla and I call like the slow blink, where they're just like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Or they go full Agent Smith and flat out turn on you and start wanting to burn you as a heretic or witch because what you're saying is absolutely blasphemous to the construct that they enjoy so much, or not enjoy, but they're so reliant on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got told I was crazy more times than I can count. Um, I'm like, okay. But yeah, and personally, I got to a point with people because you can't change someone else's perspective. If they want to change it and they have a hard time with that, you can offer alternative perspectives. But until they're ready, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to see it and they're going to project their stuff onto you at a certain point. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I I have some funny memories about trying to wake people up when they weren't quite ready.
Yeah.
But the good news is folks like us, when others do wake up, they come to us because all of a sudden their world doesn't make sense. And that's when you get to relay the knowledge that you have for them because then they're open for it and they're ready.
Yeah, no, it really is like trying to pull a tooth that ain't ready because they're not going to take it well when you start fiddling around in their head because like I've told this story before, so I'm just going to do it quick. Is I have a buddy that I've known for years from when I was doing stage and security, and he saw me at my drunkest. And sometimes when I was drunk is when my intelligence would pour out. And I was having a conversation with him the one day. I'm like, dude, I don't know why we're here, but I think I can explain to you how this reality works, like how it actually functions. And he looked at me straight in the face. He's like, please don't. Right. Like, just like, and I've barely heard from him since, to be completely honest. And Sean, I'm sorry if you're watching, but like, he just, it was like I scared the hell out of him. Like, he was like, no, I like this. I like not, he likes the structure of that reality. And he knew I could probably break his brain. And he's just like, no, please don't do that. Right. And so there's that aspect too. Like, some people just flat out don't want to know right now because they're not ready.
Yeah, they're not ready. And, they're comfortable in the lie.
Yeah.
And I get it. People get pissed off when you try to wake them up because it's like that grandma that gets conned over the internet to send that Saudi Arabian prince some money because he can't access his accounts. And somehow he ends up in jail and you got to get him out with all of your retirement, that guy. And it's like going to grandma and going, I hate to break this to you. but you've been scammed. Now, the person that has been scammed feels like an utter idiot, and they don't like the way that feels. Nobody does, right? So that's why they're so resistant when you try to wake them up, because it's not comfortable and it feels bad to realize that you've been scammed all this time, and then you feel like a fool, especially if you come to that realization because someone else is telling you that and not of your own volition. If you come to it on your own, then you can go, okay, well, I was kind of dumb about that. And then you can move on. But if there's another person in the room that also sees that you're, an idiot, because that's how you feel, right?
Yeah.
They can get quite upset at you and start doing and saying some pretty mean things. But, one of my favorite things to do with folks like that is, when people come to me and they're like, my life is awful. I've got all this awful stuff going on. And I have to break the news to them that at first pisses them off really, really bad, which is the reality of it is your life is exactly the way you want it to be on every freaking level. And so the first response I get is, you're blaming me for all the things people did to me? You're blaming me for I lost my job? You're blaming me for all the bad shit that's happened to me? And it's like, no, there's no blame here. So at first they get mad at you. And usually I get a call a couple months later going, thank you for that. You were right. And my life has drastically changed now because I realized that as long as I'm taking responsibility for this and I actively change what I'm doing to create my life, then I can create a good one that I like a lot, instead of this really shitty one that I bitched about all the time. But it's a hard one to really lay the responsibility in someone's lap for their own life. And sometimes you're lucky enough and it shakes something loose and they wake up all on their own.
I completely agree with that. I had to own a lot of terrible, shitty things about myself before I was even allowed to start to understand a lot of the things that been able to understand lately. But like, there was an absolute block in my development spiritually and as a person because I was just not there. Like, you do have to accept the reality that, a lot of what's in your life is your own damn fault. And if you shift your perspective, you can change a lot of it without it being very aggressive. Like, I just slowly shifted my life into where I wanted to be once I realized a lot of my problems were me, right?
Yeah.
Like, I felt like crap, so I switched the way I eat. My teeth hurt, so I stopped eating refined sugar.
Mhm.
Blah 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 blah. I could do that for an hour, but I totally agree that it's that ownership that allows you the key to becoming your true authentic self. And I
Mhm.
was just watching something the other day where they were measuring energetic projection of human beings in a Faraday cage when they would reach the emotion of love. Yes, that is very powerful, but there was one 90 times stronger, and that's when they were speaking from a place of authenticity. The energetic projection that was coming on, maybe it was 40. If it was 40, I apologize. My numbers might be off. But it was far more than the love frequency, even. And I know everybody's like, oh, love and light. But no, there's love yourself and be authentic to yourself, because that's when you're going to project your most honest intention into this reality, I think. Right. And reaching that authentic space of owning, like, okay, yeah, I did this and I'm going to have to do this to change that about me is truly one of the most healing things you can do.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And, the truth is, Don, is that it's still love energy. So there's a million ways to express love energy. And yes, you're absolutely right. One of the most powerful ways, which is why it is where we all have to start, is with self love, being your authentic self. And it's quite a beautiful thing to see when someone comes out of the caterpillar comes out of, as the butterfly, when you get to see who they truly are and see that beautiful light shine in somebody. Yeah. It's empowering. And after you quit being pissed off about it, it's very empowering to find out, hey, who I am is important. Who I am, no one else on the planet can be. It's a very special job that only you can do. No one else can be you, and you are here for a reason. But yeah, I have to say that from my perspective, it's still love energy.
Oh, as you were saying that, I was kind of wrapping my head around it. It's like, yeah, being authentic to yourself is about loving yourself. So that is a space of love as well. You're absolutely right. Like, I get what the video was saying too, but I also understand what you're saying. I'm just processing this at the same time we're talking, because yes, the video was saying, like, they got them to talk about something they loved specifically, but absolutely being able to embrace your authenticity is a true love of self. So you're absolutely correct, I think.
Well, I think also a lot of people, unless they're into energy work or have done a lot of research on it, don't really realize we have two heart chakras. Love frequency comes from both. So we have one heart chakra, which is the main one that most people know about, right? And then we have what's called a high heart chakra. Now, your love chakra, your heart chakra, is going to attach naturally to your crown chakra. Your high heart chakra is what attaches to source or connects to source. That is the difference between spiritual love and mundane love, for lack of a better word right now. So your earthly love, your 3D body, that's the frequency your love is going to come from, is your main heart chakra. But when you want to genuinely connect with source, you have to do that from an authentic place. There's no other place to do it from. So that's why when you're pulling from your high heart chakra, that vibration of love is going to not be a different frequency, but be much stronger in its intensity. So that's more, from my perspective, that's probably why he got the readings he did when doing that.
That I have to rewatch that video now so I can have the full piece. Thank you, because you just made me now have to go back and watch it again. But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely onto it, because, and that's what I love about these shows. I'm just going to squirrel here for a minute. When we do these shows with like me and Chris and Steven and Karen Holton and like all of the people in FKN and all of the ones doing these shows coming from the right place, this is just literally figuring out the actual physics and mechanics of our reality. It's not the indoctrinated school system version of material science. We're actually figuring out the way things work. And I truly find it fascinating. So thank you for putting that into my brain, because now I get to go back and look at something again.
Well, I always find a new piece of information when my perspective has changed. Even with the slightest little, like I'll get a little piece here, which will alter my perspective there. And then I go back and look at old information from a new perspective and find out there was a lot more information there that I missed, and that now I can digest because I had this other little piece of the puzzle that made it make sense.
I totally get that. We were just talking about this on the spiritual or consciousness panel earlier. Kyla is actually like years ahead of where she even knew, because she found a journal from 2011 where she was going through all of this stuff, and then life just got so traumatic over and over again. She lost track of it and stepped away from it because her mom gets sick. This happened, and this happened. And it kind of pushed her off of that track.
Well, none of our paths are straight. It's a winding road. And Sometimes you find yourself off your path, but in truth, those little detours are important and they're essential because you're picking up pieces of information and knowledge that you needed on your path. So being a little, every now and again, and it's good, by the time we say to ourselves, hey, I think I've gotten off my path a little bit here, that means you've gotten the information you needed. So it's time to get back on your path. Yeah. But
Abs-
I've always seen them as very essential parts of learning. And, I also believe that we're all exactly where we're supposed to be on our own personal paths.
I I think that's right. Like I've gone on some side missions, we'll call them, when like, they weren't the greatest choices for my life at the time, but they taught me something. So yeah, I dig it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Uh
So, quit judging your people, quit judging yourselves, people. Really, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Just be the best you can be today.
Absolutely. Just to circle back before we wrap up, what should people is there anything specific that people should be speaking into reality to protect themselves from negative energies and attachments? And we'll go to the second one next. Yeah. What should people be speaking? Because I've heard a lot like, oh, you have to use this mantra or you have to do this. What is, because words are spells, that's why they call it spelling. We don't have time to get into that.
Yeah.
But what would you suggest that people that feel like they're under attack or have involvement with negative attachments and energies should be speaking into their reality?
Um, I don't think that there's one specific mantra that works better than another. I find, like I said, your magic is your own. So I find that the most powerful thing someone can do is come up with their own. Um, I'll give you an example. Personally, I came up with my own little prayer many years ago. I've used it ever since. It's been a beautiful thing. Um, I do a little prayer that goes something like, Dear Goddess, please send me your angels to fly with me, protect me against all seen and unseen, positive or negative things that may seek to harm me. As I will, so mote it be. Blessed be. This is my prayer. This is helps me focus the energy, if that makes sense. I do a protective egg in my energy. It's a white ball. Start out small visualization. I grow it till it surrounds me. Looks kind of like a white egg of light. And that is what protects my personal energy. But that little prayer uh, just allows me a quick connection, so to speak. It's something I can say, and I know that that's what's happening. So I really do think that if you're going to go that route and you want something to bring your focus back, to bring your energy back to you for protection, uh, come up with it on your own. It will be your spell.
I like that because it personalizes it and it's exactly what you want. Um, and that's funny. I got VI when you said visualization. I was just about to say, how important is visualization in your self protection?
Um, Immense. Visualization allows you to open your third eye when you want to do something. So I always visualize it first. It allows the third eye to open and those energies to come in. When you speak it aloud, you're then giving it, what's the right word? Energetic weight in the third dimension. So if you want something to happen purely on an energetic level, you don't need to speak it. But if you want it to manifest into the third dimensional reality, you need to verbalize it because those are frequencies. And like you said, the reason we call it spelling, it speaks it into existence. However, when you're dealing with just yourself, you don't necessarily always have to do that. If you're wanting to protect your energy, there is no need to say anything. You can visualize it, and then you can say it to yourself in your internal voice. And that power, because it stays with you, you're not necessarily looking to manifest it into a physical thing. If that makes sense to anyone.
It, it it actually makes perfect sense to me, and well, it's making sense to the audience as well because uh, if somebody is feeling particularly bothered and hounded, how would they go about protecting their physical property and surrounding? I know you've given Kyla advice on personal matters, but like what is the 101 of protecting your space from negative energy in the physical sense?
Give me an example.
Well, when I was having a lot of negative issues, you had suggested like saging the whole house and salting certain areas of the property and such. I was just wondering, like, is that something people should be doing on in their own space if they're feeling bothered, like how to put a protective barrier around your home?
Oh, absolutely. Cleansing your space is important. I always suggest doing it about once a month. Um, make it your ritual. You can go in and do it with things like sage, salt, frankincense. There's a lot of different things you can use that kind of neutralize the energy in the space. Um, absolutely. If it gets overwhelming, and I'm just going to put this out there because it's something that I've had to use in my life at times when the negative energy will get so overwhelming that you just want to curl up in a ball in a corner and go home. Right. I think most of us have been there at one point in time or another, whether we like to admit it or not. Um, I had a shocking thing happen when I was probably about 35 years old. And I was in that condition and I yelled out, "Quit sucking my fucking energy." And this immediate release happened. And I went, "Oh shit. Okay. That was an entity that had attached to me." And I had no idea. It was intuitively something that I just, in a frustration, just screamed out. And it was an instant release. It was the craziest thing. And I realized that, yeah, you can just take away all of the permissions. And people don't know this, but anything from demonic entities to thought forms to aliens, nothing can do anything to you and your person without your consent. Do not renege on contracts, void them. So
I
if you're somebody that gets abducted a lot, you can tell them no and they have to stop, but you have to verbally and mean it. Tell them no. And that applies across the board for everything.
I think that is a great place because I know you and Chris are just getting better. I don't want to keep you too long, but we've already dropped some amazing information. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, I know I've been letting it scroll down here at the bottom. That's your email. Where can people get a hold of you for your energetic services for life coaching? Because you and I have had private conversations off camera that have helped me immensely. So I cannot suggest if people are having some personal issues, you're definitely somebody to reach out to. Um, but how would they go about getting a hold of you and where can they find you?
I appreciate that, Don, and I'm so glad I could help. Um, they can find me also at Jennifer Helcame at gmail.com. Also on Facebook, you can type in my name or you can look for Jennifer Halcombe, life coach and intuitive healer. Any of those places, feel free to message me. Let me know in the contact line that you are reaching out for services. And and I'd love to hear from any of you. If you feel drawn to me, feel like I can help you in some way, I'm happy to be of service.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'm going to do my own version of Romper Room here. Lee, I see you. Corey, I see you. Extra Trip, I see you. And Extra Trip, I will see you in a couple of hours because I am actually going to be on his Cannabis Corner review show tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you guys should go check out his channel, sign up, like, and subscribe so you can check us out while we test some cannabis products and philosophize about the universe, probably. So I want to thank you all for listening and watching. And like I always say, if you can go outside, please do, because it's a lot better than sitting in front of the screen. And I'm going outside. If it'll let me end. Why is this always? No. Serious? There it goes.